And now I want us to see the strength of an altar. The strength of an altar. And I'm going to read for us the book of 1 Samuel in chapter 5. 1 Samuel chapter 5. Okay? And I'm going to give us a background to this story. Eli, or Eli, as some people call him, was a priest in Israel. And Eli's sons started to sin. Although they were priests, they were sinning at the temple. And we are told that many times when people would bring meat for sacrifice, the priests were allowed to, once the meat was sacrificed, it had to be boiled. And they were allowed to take a fork and poke that into that pot where the meat is boiling. We are told anything that came out with that fork belonged to the priest. So I'm just imagining how those priests just made sure that their muscles for holding that fork. So that when they poke, it comes out with a big piece of meat. All right? But we are told that these young men, when people brought sacrifice, before it was boiled, they would demand that they be given the raw meat because they wanted to roast it. You know, the Bible is very funny. They wanted meat for roasting. They didn't want it boiled. And I'm sure many of us, especially in Kenya, we prefer roast meat to boiled meat, isn't it? So what happened is that this is when the young boy Samuel, God calls him. And we are told that Samuel, his mother Hannah had been a barren woman. And she came to the temple one time. And Eli could not even discern that she was praying. And when he said, "What? For how long will you be drunk, you woman? Stop drinking your wine." And she said, "No, man of God, I'm not drunk. I'm crying out to the Lord because I'm barren. I want a child." And Eli said, "May the Lord answer your request." And he did. But she said, "If God would give me a child, I will bring this child back here. And this child will be completely given over to God." So that's what she did. She brought Samuel. As a little boy, we are told he was a little boy with an ephod. As soon as he stopped breastfeeding, his mother brought him to the temple. But God, again being the gracious God, gave Hannah 5 more children, apart from Samuel. So now we see that the Philistines are fighting with the Israelites. And as they're fighting with the Israelites, whenever the Israelites went into battle, they would carry the ark into battle. And today we are going to see how sin affects the altar. So when they went to fight with the Philistines, they carried the ark, but the priests were sinful, people were sinful, and they thought just because the ark is in our midst, even if we sin, the ark will fight for us. No, it did not fight for them. In fact, we are told that the Philistines came, defeated them, and even stole the ark and went with it. They stole the ark and went with it. So we are thinking, poor ark. Poor ark ni wewe. No poor ark here. I want you to see what the ark does, because the ark is an altar. These people dared to take the altar of God. Okay? So remember that these people are sinful. And now the ark is on its own. The altar is on its own. Let us see what the altar does. So 1 Samuel chapter 5, after the Philistines had captured the ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then they carried the ark into Dagon's temple. Dagon was the god that they worshipped. So they took the ark of God, that temple, the ark, the altar, into Dagon's temple and set it beside Dagon. As in, this ark which could not even help them when you were fighting them. It has no power. You see? It didn't make sense to them. This ark was in their midst and we still defeated them. So it has no power. So they came and set it next to Dagon. So the ark can learn a few lessons from Dagon. Let's see who learned the lesson. We are told, then they carried the ark into Dagon's temple and set it beside Dagon. Verse 3. When the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, there was Dagon fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of the Lord. They were shocked. You wonder what is going on? They took Dagon and put him back in his place. This is what they are worshipping. And Dagon can't even raise himself up from the ground. So they take him and put him back in his place. Verse 4. But the following morning, when they rose, there was Dagon fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of the Lord. His head and hands had been broken off and were lying on the threshold. Only his body remained. Verse 6 tells us, the Lord's hand was heavy upon the people of Ashdod and its vicinity, because they had taken his altar into their midst. We are told he brought devastation upon them and inflicted them with tumors. That is cancer. When the men of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not stay with us, because his hand is heavy upon us and upon Dagon our God. But they are still continuing to worship Dagon. And the hand of the Lord is heavy upon Dagon also. So they called together all the rulers of the Philistines and asked them, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? This thing cannot stay in our midst. It's bringing destruction. Then they answered, have the ark of the God of Israel moved to Gath. So they moved the ark of the God of Israel to Gath. Verse 9. But after they had moved it, the Lord's hand was heavy against that city, throwing it into a great panic, because the ark is in their midst. He afflicted the people of the city, both young and old, with an outbreak of cancer again, of tumors. So they said, this ark can't stay here. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. By now, people are hearing what is happening each time the ark goes to their place. So, but after they moved it, the Lord's hand was heavy against that city, throwing it into a great panic, so they moved it to Ekron. As the ark of God was entering Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, they have brought the ark of the God of Israel to kill us and our people. Okay? So they called together all the rulers of the Philistines and said, send the ark of the God of Israel away. Let it go back to its own place, to the Israelites, or it will kill us and our people. For death had filled the city with panic, and God's hand was very heavy upon it. The strength of a godly altar. And it says, those who did not die were afflicted with tumors. And the outcry of the city went up to heaven. The outcry of the city went up to heaven.